Okay, imagine this for a second. Bombs are literally falling on a capital city. A war is dragging into its third week, and the president, who ordered the strikes...
Much more. Only because people don't understand to a large... It's a big chess game at a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people. They don't get there. You know, when you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people.
And that's the paradox we're digging into. To get it, you have to understand the war itself. A war that, by the way, was supposed to be easy, clean, and over in just a few days. So how on earth do you get to a place where a military bombing campaign turns into, well, a reluctant tip of the hat? See, this wasn't just about firepower. It was a war of ideas, of strategy. And it turns out one side's playbook was 40 years old and a heck of a lot smarter than the other side ever imagined. All right, let's get our bearings. The date is March 17th, 2026. The whole thing started back on February 28th with a huge air campaign. And on day one, boom, they get their main target. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is killed. But now, 3 weeks later, the bombs are still falling. And that big finale everyone expected, total regime collapse, yeah, that hasn't happened. Not even close. Now, the strategy behind that first attack was classic stuff, straight out of a military textbook. It's got a name, the decapitation strike, and you know, on paper, it makes perfect sense. The whole idea was pretty simple, right? You cut off the head of the snake, and the body will just wither and die. You take out the leadership, and the whole system falls into chaos. It's a strategy that assumes you're fighting a top-down centralized power, and that assumption, well, that was their first and biggest mistake. I mean, look at how simple the plan was. Step 1, take out the supreme leader. Step 2, just wait. Kick back and watch as the regime tears itself apart in a civil war. And Step 3, declare victory over a broken enemy. It was supposed to be a quick, clean, surgical operation. But here's the thing. Iran wasn't playing that game. While the US and its allies were planning a 21st century shock and awe campaign, Iran was busy executing a countermove it had been preparing for almost half a century. You see, for them, this wasn't a surprise. It was inevitable. Since the 1980s, Iran's entire military and political structure has been built around one single idea. Someday, the West is going to try and bomb us into submission. So every missile that hit, every explosion, it was landing on a system that was built from the ground up to take the punch. And this is where that whole cut off the head of the snake idea got flipped completely upside down. The war planners thought killing the leader would create a power vacuum. What it actually did was create a martyr. His death didn't fracture the country. It became rocket fuel for unity. It just proved their whole narrative right. And this resilience, it's built on two things you just can't bomb. First, it's deep in their cultural DNA, this idea of zulm, or tyranny. The story isn't about winning every fight. It's about enduring, about outlasting the big guy. And second, just look at a map. Iran is basically a natural fortress of mountains, which is the perfect place to hide military assets. It's like free, built-in stealth technology against the best spy satellites in the world. So all of this feeds right into how they actually fight. This isn't a showdown between two equal armies. It's a textbook example of what's called asymmetric warfare, where the supposedly weaker side just decides to play by a completely different set of rules. You can see the two totally different mindsets right here. US doctrine is all about million-dollar missiles, overwhelming the enemy with high-tech gear, and making the other guy give up. Iran's doctrine, it's about endurance, survival. It's about making those expensive strikes useless by just throwing more and more cheap stuff at the problem. It's not about winning, it's about not losing. And it all boils down to this number, $20,000. That's about what it costs to build one Iranian Shahed drone. Now think about that. You can launch 50 of those for the price of just one Tomahawk cruise missile. It is not a fair fight, and that is exactly the point. The goal is to make it so insanely expensive for the stronger power to keep fighting that they just give up and go home. This is the kind of enemy the decapitation strike was designed to beat, a classic pyramid structure. All the orders come from one person at the very top. It's efficient, sure, but it's also incredibly fragile. You take out that one person at the top, and the whole thing is paralyzed. But Iran didn't build a pyramid. For decades, they've been building a web. It's decentralized, it's got backups for its backups, and it's built to last. In a web, there's no single point of failure. You can snap a thread here, a thread there, and the rest of the web just absorbs the impact and keeps right on going. And here's what that web actually looks like. You've got regional military commands that can operate on their own. You've got succession plans that are ready to go in an instant. And this is the really critical part. You have a whole network of proxies all over the region. Hezbollah, the Houthis, you name it. They don't need to wait for a phone call from Tehran to cause trouble. They already know the play. So what happens when you use a strategy designed to shatter a pyramid against a web? Well, the damage doesn't stay contained. It spreads, it ripples out, and it changes the entire game in ways the planners clearly never saw coming. The theory was that Iran was all alone and its allies would just sit on their hands. The reality? All of a sudden shipping is threatened in the Strait of Hormuz. Drone swarms start hitting oil facilities in the Gulf. The image of a place like Dubai as a totally safe, untouchable paradise shattered overnight. The proxies didn't fold, they went all in, proving Iran was anything but alone. This whole strategy, from the cheap drones to the spiderweb command structure, it all has a name: asymmetric warfare. And the goal is not to meet the enemy head-on and win. It's to make the cost of fighting, in dollars, in resources, in political willpower, so painfully high that the stronger side eventually just says, you know what, this isn't worth it. Which brings us right back to where we started, to this quote. When you first heard it, it probably sounded bizarre, maybe even a little crazy. But now it starts to make a chilling kind of sense, doesn't it? See, it wasn't praise, it wasn't admiration, it was that dawning, sinking feeling you get when you realize you've been completely outmaneuvered. It was the moment of grudging acknowledgement that your simple, powerful plan to win the game in 3 moves just ran headfirst into a deep, patient, and complex strategy you never even saw coming. And that's really the question this whole scenario leaves us with. In modern war, it turns out victory isn't always about having the biggest bombs or the fanciest tech. Sometimes it's about understanding the game on a deeper level than your opponent. And it forces us all to ask, what happens when you show up expecting to play checkers, only to find yourself in the middle of a grandmaster level chess match that started 40 years before you even sat down at the board?
Some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people.
This is the bizarre story of a war fought not just with drones and missiles, but with a very strange kind of respect. So this is the quote that kicks the whole thing off. You just don't expect to hear a world leader talk about an enemy like this, especially not in the middle of a shooting war. It almost sounds like he admired them.